Hello and welcome back to Off the Post. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the top 10 worst summer signings of the season. Of course, we did rank the top 10 best transfers last week, so it's only right now that we do the top 10 worst transfers. And there's only one rule to this, you know what I mean? It can be players from, with high expectations that haven't lived up to the hype. It can be whether you've not played enough minutes, whether you've not had that much impact on your team this season. So there are a few rules that I'm sort of going off when I'm ranking the worst players. But as always, like, comment, subscribe. It's very much appreciated. And the recent support on our most recent video has been fantastic. All the likes, the comments on social media as well. I can't thank you guys enough. Let's just get straight into the video, shall we? Let's start off with some honourable mentions, okay? A few players we've got on the list could be like Oliver Skipp for Leicester. He had a fantastic time in the Championship on loan last season, of course, or the season before, sorry. And in the Premier League, he just wasn't it, was he? I feel like since Drewsbury Hall left, he didn't have another player alongside him that could do the business. So yeah, Oliver Skipp could be in there. You've got players like Ferdy Kananoglu from Brighton, the left back. Signed him from Fenerbahce for 30 million, and he only played like 6 games, so it is a little bit of a waste in money, that some people might say. I feel like Jaden Philogene as well could be in there, Ian Madsen, other players like that, just because for me, like Jaden Philogene signed them for like 18 million from Aston Villa, and he didn't really do that much to keep Ipswich in the league. And don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player for the Championship, and I do feel like Ipswich do have a super team in the Championship next season, so I feel like they're ones to watch, especially to probably get promoted again next season. But for me, Jaden Philogene, could they have gone with somebody a little bit more experienced? I'm not too sure. Maybe, I don't know. And then Ian Madsen as well. Don't get me wrong, he's a good backup left back to Lucas Digne, but he hasn't been able to break through into that first team, has he? Since Lucas Digne has been impressive this season so far as well. He's been a consistent player for Aston Villa in that left back spot. But I feel like Ian Madsen is definitely one for the future. He's very good going forward, but he just gets caught out defensively. So yeah, you're seeing that the other day with that penalty he gave away against Manchester United. So it swings and roundabouts for Ian Madsen's time at Aston Villa so far. He's fantastic at going forward, but defensively he needs to get a little bit better and he needs to improve. Hopefully he can do that next season. But let's just start off with our top 10 worst transfers of the season. Don't get me wrong, these are all great players in the Premier League. You've got to be a good player to be in the Premier League, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, but it's just some players that, either, you've had high expectations, haven't done as well, or you just haven't impressed so far through what I've seen of the player. So starting off in the number 10 position of the worst transfers this season, it is Fabio Cavalio for Brentford. Okay, obviously he signed for Brentford for 22.5 million from Liverpool. He had high expectations. We had a little bit high expectations in the sense of that he's got high potential. He's a decent attacking midfielder, for Liverpool back in the day. Since breaking through at Fulham in the Championship, he hasn't really done that much. Obviously, he played a few games here and there under Klopp and whatnot, but for me, he hasn't really shown his quality for Brentford so far. I think he scored 3 goals and got 3 assists for Brentford, so it's not terrible, but it's just also not enough. I suppose he's got players like Damsgaard ahead of him in that sort of position, in that sort of number 8, number 10 role, so it was a little bit difficult. Let me read out one stat to Fabio Cavalio. I don't want to spend too much time on this because I feel like it is a little bit too harsh, but Fabio Cavalio has scored 5 goals in his Premier League career so far, with all of them coming from his right foot, and he has also provided 1 assist and has a shooting accuracy of 47%. So for me, he hasn't been a terrible signing, but he hasn't been good either, so it's a little bit harsh maybe saying putting him number 10, but at the same time, I feel like it is. I think for that price, 23.5 million, it is a lot of money for Brentford, and for that reason alone, he is my number 10th position, Fabio Cavalio. Right, okay, moving over to my number 9th pick is Eddie Nketiah for Crystal Palace. Obviously, they brought him from Arsenal for 30 million, and for me, I feel like it was the right decision to leave Arsenal, to get more minutes in the Premier League, to get more minutes under his belt, but I just feel like it was the wrong decision to join Crystal Palace, especially when you've got Mateta in front of him, because for me, you're never ever going to get ahead of Mateta in that starting lineup because he's had one of his breakout seasons in the Premier League. He's scored the most goals in his Premier League season. I think he's got 15, 16 goals now for Crystal Palace in 1 year. So from that perspective, I feel like Eddie Nketiah will only ever be a squad player, backup player for Crystal Palace. And from that perspective, he couldn't have joined a newly promoted team, whether that was, you know, Southampton, Leicester City, someone like that who could have needed a you know, starting striker for the Premier League, because he has got Premier League experience. He does score some goals here and there. I think he's got 7 goals this season. So from that perspective, Eddie Nketiah hasn't been a bad transfer, but for 30 million, I just don't know. Like, he's been all right, hasn't he? I feel like he might be a little bit harsh and he's been a bad transfer, but he's done all right. And obviously leaving, you know, your boyhood club to join Crystal Palace and win an FA Cup, it hasn't been a bad transfer whatsoever for the player. But I just feel for the club, could they have signed somebody better who might have scored them, you know, double digits in goals and assists? I don't know. I'm not too sure. But obviously, you know, every transfer is a risk. So at the end of the day, it's never guaranteed that it's going to work out, isn't it? So from that perspective, it's been all right. I'd say I'll probably give the transfer like a 6 or 7 out of 10. Like, it's been okay. I'll probably give it 6 out of 10, if anything. Right, moving over to our number 8th pick now. It is Aaron Ramsdale from Southampton. Obviously joined them from Arsenal for around roughly 25 million, I'm pretty sure. And now you got to think to yourself, he had high expectations. For me, he had high expectations because he had a fantastic season the season before. Obviously, competing it with David Raya, it wasn't good enough in that sort of battle. David Raya did get the better of him, but I think the season before that, he was very impressive for obviously Arsenal and England as well. And also, you know what I mean, Aaron Ramsdale, one thing you can say about him, you know, he's had 3 or 4 relegations under his belt now, and that is seriously a bad thing to have on your CV, isn't it, as a football player? You was expecting him to pull out 8 out of 10 performances each week in, week out, and he just didn't do that because I just don't think his defence was strong enough and his midfield was strong enough to sort of protect him in those sort of big games against the you know, the top 6, the mid-table teams, and those teams fighting it out in relegation as well. So for me, Aaron Ramsdale, he's played 30 games in the Premier League with Southampton, and he's got a save percentage of 64.84%, which isn't terrible, but at the same time, I feel like it does need to be better if you wanted to keep Southampton in the league, and I just don't know if he did enough to, you know, do that in this season in the Premier League. So I feel like he's my number 8th pick for worst transfers of the summer. Don't get me wrong, he's a fantastic player. He's a good player. I think fantastic's a little bit too strong. I feel like he just has, he does lose concentration in those big moments, and for me, I just feel like he needs to get that next move right. I'm not too sure if he'll start at Southampton now. He might do, but I'm not too sure if he will. But I think he needs to get that next move right. You don't want to move to another relegation battling team, do you? Because that would be another bad look for him, won't it? You got to go to like a West Ham or a Fulham or somewhere like that, who are more like stable in the Premier League, who've been in the Premier League now for like 3 or 4 years, so you can guarantee that Premier League every season and build upon maybe being in the Europa League, Champions League, or whatnot, or being a good proven Premier League player just to begin with, because you can't keep on getting relegated, because it's not a good look, is it? Right, moving over to our number 7th player, it is Gundogan for Manchester City. Obviously joined them again from Barcelona on a free transfer. Previously was at Man City for a good few years and was a fantastic player. He was one of Manchester City's best ever players in that midfield in recent years at least. But since he's joined back this season, he's looked a shadow of his former self, hasn't he, Gundogan? He just hasn't been the player he was a few seasons ago. Don't get me wrong, he scored a few goals here and there this season, but being at the old age of, I'm guessing, 31, 32, maybe even 33 at this point, I just feel like he's a little bit too old. He probably lost those legs in midfield. He can't, you know, cover the amount of ground as he used to do as well. So for me, I feel like it was a little bit of a failure this season. I don't think there was high expectations. I feel like he probably was more of a squad player. And at the same time, I think with the injury of Rodri and other certain players in that midfield, you probably wasn't expecting him to start as many games as he actually did. So from that point of view, if he did come in as a squad player and had a few games here and there, he probably would be a good transfer. But because he had to play so many games at such an older age player, if that makes sense, it looks worse than it is, because he's had to play so many games and he's had to you know, replace Rodri, and he wasn't a good enough replacement in that sort of aspect, if that makes sense. So for me now, moving over to our number 6 player is Pedro for Aston Villa. Obviously signed for 50 million from Everton. Now for me, I feel like this is a little bit harsh because he had a good start to the season. There was a good 5 to 10 game period where he was looking fantastic, scoring goals in the Premier League, scoring goals in the Champions League. He was looking so good, but then he just got an injury and he was out for like I want to say like a month or two, or maybe even 3 months, and he just didn't really get back to his best after he got injured. And for me, I want to say this might be a little bit too harsh, but he hasn't lived up to the hype because there was a lot of expectations. Everybody was giving a lot of praise last season before we signed him, of course. And he was being linked with the likes of Manchester United, Arsenal, and he just hasn't lived up to the expectations. Don't get me wrong, he's a very good player. I do like how he adds height to the Aston Villa midfield. He's a good, he's a little bit of a freak. He's got a little bit of a defensive minded. He's a little bit of a defensive minded player, but he can also drive with the ball. He can also shoot and score as well. So he's a good player in there. And I feel like next season, hopefully him and Boubacar Kamara can build up that good partnership alongside Youri Tielemans as well. But yeah, I just don't think for 50. I think for the price tag 50 million, he hasn't done as well as I thought he would have. Don't get me wrong. I think Amadou Onana is the best height man in the Premier League. Don't get me wrong. Okay, this guy, every time an Aston Villa player scores a goal, he is cheering like nobody's business. Okay, he is the loudest player on that pitch when an Aston Villa player scores a goal. So for that reason alone, he's only 6th on my list. He's not been as bad as everybody says. I don't think he has. I do rate him very highly, but it's just those injuries. Hopefully he can stay injury free for next season, and he can show why Aston Villa signed him for 15 million. Right, moving over to my number 5 position now. It is Federico Kaiser. Hopefully I said his name right. I'm not too sure, but it is the Italian left winger for Liverpool, of course. Obviously signed him from Juventus for 35 million, which it isn't that much money because I feel like he's only on his. I feel like he's had like 1 or 2 years left. It wasn't that much money, but he joined there as he had big expectations because he was a top player for Juventus and he did some big stuff for Juventus, scoring some decent goals over there. So he had high expectations and he just hasn't worked out. He hasn't had that many minutes. He hasn't broken through for the first team. Obviously, he's competing with the likes of Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota, so some very hard competition in there. But with the talent he's got, I do feel like he probably should have done a little bit better in his first season. He had a good tournament for Italy, and I feel like off the back of that, he probably could have done better than he has done this season. And he just hasn't really done much. I can't really think of any standout moments from him in the Premier League. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Liverpool fans can let me know in the comments. I'm not too sure, but I feel like there's potential that he might leave after 1 season in the Premier League. So I don't know. I feel like maybe Liverpool might have been the wrong club for him again, just because he should have gone somewhere where he was starting week in, week out, where he was guaranteed to be a starter, because I feel like the competition of Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota maybe did probably get the better of him at times, and they probably are, slightly ahead of him in the pecking order at Liverpool. But maybe let me know that is my 5th player on the list. Moving over to number 4 now, it is Manuel Ugate from Manchester United. Obviously signed there from PSG for roughly about 50 million, I'm pretty sure. Heavy price tag for that player, and for me, I feel like PSG got an absolute steal for him. Especially if you look at their midfield now for PSG, of course, it looks like an absolute steal when you've got João Neves, you've got Fabio Ruiz in there, you've got some other players I can't think of right now. But Manuel Ugarte, there was high expectations on the player just because of his playing style, but he just hasn't impressed so far. I feel like there was comparisons a few seasons ago when he was at Sporting Lisbon to N'Golo Kante, just because of the height, because of the way he plays in that CDM position. He's got good tackling. He's a bit aggressive as well. He can press from the front of midfield and protect those defenders. But we just haven't seen that for Manchester United this season. So for me, I feel like it is a bit of a waste of money, especially when you're paying 50 million for him. Absolute waste. Hopefully, maybe Manchester United can buy somebody alongside him with a bit more legs, because when you've got to have Christian Eriksen alongside him or Casemiro alongside him, but then again you've got Kobe Mainoo in there as well. For me, I don't know why Ruben Amorim hasn't played Mainoo as much. Obviously, he's been injured this season. Don't get me wrong, but Even still, I'd rather have Mainu in there ahead of Christian Eriksen and Casemiro. But yeah, Manuel Ugate just hasn't lived up to the high expectations, because he had a high reputation at the likes of PSG and Sporting Lisbon, and for me, he hasn't impressed since being there. So it is a bit of a waste of money for me. Moving over to my third position, okay, top 3 players of worst signings of the summer. Okay, now this is Maximilian Kilman for West Ham, okay. Obviously, they signed him for 47 million from Wolves. Absolutely massive transfer fee for the centre-back, for the English centre-back. And don't get me wrong, there was big expectations after a great season at Wolverhampton. And he did have a very impressive time there at Wolverhampton. But again, he just didn't live up to the hype. For me, did West Ham buy him a little bit too early? Should have gave him another season, because he's only been in the Premier League now for a good 1 or 2 seasons, but I feel like he's actually, proven that he's a good Premier League player. And if a good Premier League proven player costs 47.5 million now, that is a lot of money in the Premier League, isn't it? Don't get me wrong, the amount of people spend on players these days is absolutely extremely extortionate. It honestly is. I don't even know if I've pronounced that word right. Don't think I've said that word in my life. Maximilian Kilman was meant to be West Ham's new rock at the back, at centre-back, wasn't he? And for me, he just hasn't lived up to the expectations at the moment, because for that price tag, it is a lot of money for an average Premier League player. I don't know, he's had 1 or 2 good seasons in the Premier League, and I'm not too sure about him. I'm not too sure how I feel about the transfer. West Ham were meant to have one of the best transfer windows in the Premier League, and when you look at some of the signings they've made, I don't think any of them have lived up to the hype. I don't know if they all had high representations, right, from being at big clubs or having a good season in the previous year. But again, I'm not too sure. I feel like West Ham's season has been a failure. But then you've had the likes of they've had a manager change, haven't they? Obviously, they started the season with the ex-Barcelona manager. Is it Lopetegui? Lopetegui? Something like that. I've pronounced that was just so bad. And then obviously he got sacked. Graham Potter came in. He has looked good since Graham Potter has come in. Obviously, Maximilian Kilman. I feel like he's a good player, but for the price, I don't think he's proven. So I don't think he's proven the reason why West Ham should have, went all out to sign him. I'm not too sure. Maybe they could have signed somebody a little bit cheaper and they could have done the same job. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Let me know in the comments, West Ham fans. Do you agree with me? Do you think Maximilian Kilman has been a good signing for you? Am I thinking too much on the price tag and I'm not too sure? I don't know. Anyways, let me know in the comments. My number 2 pick is Pedro Neto from Wolves. Obviously, they signed him for 60 million, and the outgoings for Wolves has been good from that sense, but you could probably say to yourself, if they didn't get rid of those 2 big players in their squad, they might have done a little bit better this season. I'm not too sure about Pedro Neto, because he's not a bad player. He's not been terrible. Don't get me wrong. He's been all right. He's had a few moments where I can think back to myself and say, you know what, you've impressed me there. But he hasn't done it week in, week out. He's not broken into that starting 11. And for me, when you think about Chelsea's wingers, I do feel like they need another 1 or 2 players in there in those positions, just because for me they've not had a left winger that's nailed down that starting position for me. I don't know if I'm wrong or not, but you've had Jadon Sancho, you've had Madueke, you've had Pedro Neto, you've had Tyreek George play a few games here and there from the academy. So from that perspective, he's a good player. I just don't know if he can make the jump up to that, world-class status in the Premier League. I'm not too sure. That's just my opinion. But Pedro Neto, he isn't bad. He's all right. He can have a few moments here and there. I just don't know if he can. I don't know if he's lived up to the price tag of 60 million as well. Again, I feel like that's one of the main reasons for putting most of these players on my list. It's the amount of money you spend, and to not be a consistent player in the Premier League for the amount of money you spent, it's just not good enough. You know what I mean? 60 million, and you're not starting week in, week out. Come on, what's that about? Anyways, moving over to my number 1 pick, it is Riccardo Calfiori from Arsenal. Hopefully I've said his name right. Obviously they signed him for 45 million from Bologna in Italy, in the Serie A. Now this player's had big expectations from the tournament he had with Italy. He was fantastic in that tournament, wasn't he? He was one of the best players for Italy and probably one of the main reasons why they won the Euros. But he just hasn't been able to break into that first team, has he? Honestly, You know what I mean? And it looks even worse when a 17-year-old Lewis Miles at Skelly has took his spot in that season. He's literally playing most of the games in front of him this season, Lewis Miles at Skelly. So from that perspective, you got to think to yourself, did Arsenal actually need another left back? I feel like they probably did, don't get me wrong. But if they could have, I don't know, maybe waited a few more months for this young 17-year-old, 18-year-old to break through into that first team, maybe it's a little bit waste of money. 45 million is a lot of money as well. I also think he's in a bit of a standstill in his career because I think he's too good to be a backup, but he hasn't been given a chance at centre-back either, and that's another position where he can play. And when you've got someone like the Polish centre-back for Arsenal, I've sort of lost his name at the moment, I can't think of his name in my head, but yeah, if you think about him, he's starting over in that centre-back position, and I feel like he probably could do a job there, replacing like William Saliba or Gabriel whenever they're not fit or whatnot. But it sometimes takes players a little bit longer to adapt into the Premier League. It's only been one season, so, you know, he's had a few injuries here and there as well, don't get me wrong, but, you know, not playing in that left-back spot, having a 17 to 18-year-old replace him week in, week out, it's not a good look for him. And, you know, I think there's also talk they might spend more money on another left-back this summer, so who knows. I mean, like 2 or 3 left-backs recently when you need a striker, that's a little bit weird transfer business from Arsenal, isn't it? So it's a little bit weird one from that perspective. So here's my top 10 list of worst summer signings in the Premier League. What do you guys think in the comments, okay? Would you think he'll be able to, you know, play some more minutes under Arsenal next season? What do you think about Pedro Neto? Do you think he's a half-decent player? Do you think he'll come good next season for Chelsea? Obviously, they're in the Champions League now. Do you think he's Champions League quality? What do we think about Maximilian Kilman? Was he a good transfer for West Ham? Do you think he'll come good under Graham Potter now? What do we think about Ampadu Onana? Spending 50 million on him, was that the right price? Could you have got somebody a little bit cheaper? I don't know. Those are some of the questions I've got, and yeah, as always, like, comment, subscribe. It is very much appreciated, and I just want to say the level of support on these most recent videos has been absolutely incredible. It has blown me out of the water so far with the amount of support I've received, and I just want to say yeah, thank you very much. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.